They told us the cliffs would be beautiful in September. Jagged stone ridges, gold brush, icy wind off the lake. It was a remote trail, far from the usual routes, and that's what drew us in. No cell service, no other campers. Just four of us and the wilderness. We hiked in on a Thursday, reaching the plateau by dusk. The terrain opened up into a flat basin with low grass and broken rock, surrounded by cliffs that rose at odd angles. It felt like the world had split open, and we were standing inside the fault. That night was colder than we expected. No owls, no insects, just wind pressing through the cracks in the cliffs. We made a fire, told stories. At some point, Dan tossed a joke across the camp, something about how we'd end up on a missing persons list. And when no one laughed, he said it louder. It should have echoed. We were surrounded by stone, but there was nothing. No bounce, no reverb. Just silence, like the words had dropped and been swallowed. We laughed it off at first, even tested it, clapping, shouting, whistling, but the sound went nowhere. It just stopped a few feet out, like hitting padded walls. We blamed the air, the wind direction, the shape of the valley. Someone joked about cursed lands. But after a while, no one really wanted to talk anymore. We all noticed the same thing. The quieter we got, the heavier the silence felt, like something was leaning in to listen. Dan had brought a small field recorder. He liked to document hikes, collect ambient sounds. That night he left it running near the fire while we slept. In the morning he was gone. No sign of struggle, no tracks leading away. Just his sleeping bag zipped open, his boots still beside it, and the recorder still running, lying in the grass with its little red light blinking. We listened to the recording in the cold morning light, huddled around the tiny speaker like it could explain everything. At first, there was nothing unusual, just the dry rustle of wind and an occasional crackle from the fire. Then, a few hours in, we heard the sound of Dan unzipping his bag. A short, quiet breath. Footsteps, soft ones, moving away. He didn't say a word. No cough, no muttered complaint, no yawn. Just the quiet rhythm of his boots in the grass, fading fast. And then 30 minutes later, something else. More footsteps. But these were different. No zipper, no breath. Just a single pair of slow, heavy steps coming from the opposite direction, stopping exactly where Dan's bag had been. They stood there for over 2 hours. The recorder picked up the faint distortion of movement, subtle shifts, like someone adjusting their weight or swaying side to side, but never leaving, never sitting, never breathing. And then came the whispering. It was faint, garbled, not a language we recognized, just a low rhythmic pattern like someone trying to speak while underwater. Every few seconds the wind would spike and cut it off. The recorder ran out of space soon after that. We searched all morning, split into 2 groups and fanned out along the cliffs and tree line. The basin offered no real cover, yet Dan was gone. No prints, no broken branches, no gear taken. Just absence, clean and quiet. By early afternoon, we made a decision. Pack up and hike out before dark. We were still nearly a day from the ranger station, and none of us wanted to spend another night there. But as we rolled up the tents, Mark stopped mid-motion, staring at the far edge of the basin. There was someone standing there. At least it looked like a person, tall, narrow, gray against the rock. No movement, no features, just standing. And then, as we squinted to get a better look, the wind picked up, and the figure bent slightly, unnaturally, like its joints moved in the wrong places, before it dropped behind a ridge and disappeared. We didn't say anything, just finished packing in silence and left. But the silence followed us. No echo, no crunch of gravel underfoot, no chirping birds or snapping twigs. Our footsteps felt swallowed by the trail, as if sound itself refused to travel past the cliff line. It took us nearly 9 hours to reach the first ranger shelter. By then, the sun was gone, and the temperature was falling fast. We radioed for help and tried to explain what had happened, but even as we spoke, none of it made sense out loud. It didn't feel real. Only the recording felt real, and the silence. The Rangers launched a search the next morning. 2 teams, dogs, thermal drones, everything they had. We joined them, though we stayed close to the edges. None of us wanted to step back into that basin. But it didn't matter, because when we returned, it was different. The cliffs were the same shape. The basin was still there. But the wind had stopped. No rustling grass. No cold cutting through our jackets. And the silence wasn't just unsettling, it was total. The search team's voices barely carried. Radios worked, but with strange lags, like someone was pressing mute every few seconds. The dogs became nervous, kept looking toward the same empty stretch of stone and whining without explanation. The drone flew its grid and came back with clean footage. No heat signatures. No movement. Just rock and sky. After 48 hours, they called it off. No sign of Dan. No signs of wildlife. Not even the usual insects. The official report said disappearance under unclear conditions. The ranger in charge told us off the record that sometimes these things happen. The land swallows people. Like they step between something, he said, tapping the edge of the table, and it closes behind them. We left the basin with Dan's recorder and haven't been back since, but that wasn't the end. 2 weeks later, I was reviewing the file again. Not because I wanted to, I hadn't touched it since we got home, but because I woke one night to a sound in my apartment. A faint, dry crackling, like static or distant wind. It stopped when I turned on the light. I found the recorder sitting on my desk. I hadn't put it there. There was a new file. It hadn't been there before. The metadata said it had been recorded at 3:41 a.m., the same hour I'd woken up. The file begins with static, then breathing, shallow, steady. A few soft footsteps across what sounds like gravel. Then the unmistakable sound of a zipper, Dan's tent. Same model, same zipper. Followed by his voice, faint and shaky. Is someone out there? There's no reply, just silence, for nearly a minute. Then a whisper, not words, just the same pattern we heard in the basin. A rasping underwater rhythm. Then it cuts off. That was the last recording. I've played it for experts. No one can explain the file. The recorder has no connectivity, no auto-record function. But somehow it captured something new long after we left. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear the wind, even when the windows are closed. Not real wind, but that exact sound from the basin. Thin, dry, hollow, like something waiting just outside the room, listening, and refusing to let the sound go anywhere. They told us not to camp there, not because it was dangerous or remote or full of bears, but because no one ever does it twice. Not the same group, not the same people. It's a clearing off an old logging road, maybe 2 hours from the nearest town. Looks normal enough. Flat ground. Ring of stones where people build fires. Even an old wooden bench someone dragged in years ago. The first time I heard the story was from a ranger. Offhand, like a half-joke. People go missing there. Always after a fire. Happens once every year or two. Nobody ever comes back to light a second one. We thought it was just backwoods folklore. The kind of thing you say to mess with newcomers. So we ignored it. 4 of us, 2 couples, went anyway. We set up camp, collected wood, and lit the fire around dusk. It crackled steady and strong, bright orange against the trees. That night was calm. No wind, no animals. The air felt thick, like the forest was listening. I couldn't shake the sense that we were being watched, not by anything living, but by the place itself, as if it was remembering us. We sat in silence longer than we meant to. Every time someone went to speak, the fire would pop sharply, as if interrupting. At some point the heat started to feel strange, not warm, but heavy, pressing in around our shoulders and chest. When the flames finally began to die down, no one moved to add more wood. We just stared, half hypnotized, until the last ember faded to black. I don't remember going to bed. I don't remember packing. I don't even remember the drive home. But here's what I do remember. 3 days later, I woke up on my apartment floor with dirt under my fingernails, smoke in my hair, and someone else's lighter in my pocket. I called the others. No one answered. None of their phones worked. I checked with their families. All 3 of them had been reported missing. And the strangest part? The ranger who told me the story, the one who warned us, he was reported missing too. They found his truck abandoned near that same clearing, keys in the ignition. In the bed there was a bag of firewood, unused. You can go out there if you want. The place is still there, still quiet, still empty. But don't light the fire, because the first time you do, the forest remembers you. And the second time, there is no second time. They say it's just forest decay, pine needles, wet soil, something in the trees, but I know the difference between that and the smell of something burned. We were camping out by Ash Lake. That's not the real name, but everyone calls it that now. The original campground was shut down in the late 90s after a fire, a bad one. Rumor was that a kid died when a propane heater malfunctioned in one of the tents. His name never made the papers, just a single paragraph buried in the back of the local news. Teen dies in accidental fire at private campsite. No photos, no follow-up. The forest grew back around it. Someone cut a new trail. Kids started camping there again. We were no different, just trying to get off the grid for a weekend. There were 4 of us. We set up on a flat stretch by the lake. The weather was good. No wind, no rain. That first night was calm. We built a fire, told dumb stories, drank warm beer. Around midnight, we all turned in. I woke up at 2:13 a.m. I checked my phone. No sounds, no movement, just a smell. Faint at first, familiar. Burnt plastic, melted fabric, something chemical under it all. I got out of the tent, thinking maybe someone's gear had caught a spark. But the fire pit was cold. Everyone else was asleep. The tents were intact. No smoke, no embers. Still, the smell was stronger now, like burned nylon and cheap synthetic foam. It was coming from the woods behind us. I walked maybe 10 yards into the trees. Nothing there, just that smell. And on the ground, half buried in moss, I saw something white. I pulled it out. A sneaker, half melted, blackened at the toe. Size 7 youth. The laces had fused to the tongue. The sole was warped like it had been in a fire, but there were no other signs of burning. No scorch marks on the trees. No ash, no bones. Just that one sneaker, sitting alone in the middle of untouched forest. I brought it back to the fire circle in the morning. No one recognized it. No one wanted to talk about it. We left an hour later. I still have the photo of it, taken on my phone, 3:02, amidst blurry, lit only by my headlamp, but you can clearly see the letters on the sole. They spell out property of Camp Red Pines. That camp shut down 26 years ago. And every year since, people say that around 2 a.m., near Ash Lake, you might smell burning fabric. If you do, leave immediately, because next time the only thing they'll find is your shoes. There were 6 of us on that trip, 4 from my college group, plus a couple of friends. Nothing unusual. We drove up Friday afternoon, set up 2 tents near the lake, and built a good-sized fire. Someone brought a guitar. There was cheap beer, dumb jokes, the usual. At some point, maybe around 11 p.m., someone else joined the circle. He didn't say anything, just sat down quietly between Mark and Lydia, wearing a black hoodie with the hood up. We assumed he came with someone else, maybe one of the people we didn't know personally. The fire cast weird shadows across his face, and no one seemed to mind his silence. Honestly, it didn't even register as strange at the time. The rest of the night passed like normal. Stories, drinks, someone fell asleep by the fire. Another wandered off to pee in the woods and got lost for 20 minutes. We all crashed around 2:30 a.m. the next morning. We were packing up when I realized I never actually got the hoodie guy's name. I asked Lydia who he was. She shrugged and said, "Wasn't he your friend?" I said no. Mark thought he came with Dan. Dan thought he came with Rachel. Rachel said, "I thought he was your friend." Everyone went silent for a moment. Then we did a head count. 6 of us, including hoodie guy. But now there were only 5. We checked the tents. We checked the shoreline, thinking maybe someone had gone for a walk. Nothing. No footprints, no extra bag, no water bottle, no trash. Not a single sign that a 6th person had been there at all. We even argued for a bit, thinking maybe we were all just drunk and misremembered, but we all remembered the guy in the hoodie. And here's the part that still messes with me. There's a photo. Someone took a group shot by the fire. Rachel's phone. You can see everyone clearly. Me, Lydia, Mark, Dan, Rachel, and there's an empty space between Lydia and Mark, like someone was supposed to be sitting there. A gap in the circle. Firelight behind it, but nothing in the space itself. But I remember him. I remember how he smelled faintly like ash. I remember his shoulders were too still, like he wasn't breathing right. I remember thinking, even then, that something was off, but I was too polite to say anything. I don't know who he was, or what he wanted, or why there's no trace of him at all. But I do know one thing. That night, there were 6 of us sitting around that fire, and one of us didn't leave. This isn't a ghost story. I wish it were. Then I could blame it on something supernatural and move on. But it's not. And I still can't explain what happened. It was late September when I went out solo camping. Just a 2-night trip up in the northern woods. Quiet, remote, nothing fancy. I hiked off the trail about 2 miles and found a good clearing, not far from a stream. Set up my tent, lit a fire, and settled in. It was cold that night, but peaceful. I remember how the trees looked like walls around me, tall and solid, like I was sitting in the center of a deep breathing room. Around 1:30 a.m., I noticed a light flickering between the trees to my left. At first, I thought it was lightning, then maybe another hiker. It looked like firelight, pulsing low and steady. I hadn't seen or heard anyone nearby all day, but it was possible someone else had set up camp just out of view. Curiosity got the better of me. I put on my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and started walking toward it, maybe 60-70 yards through the brush. The fire was real, and it was burning low, surrounded by stones, but there was no one there, just the fire and a pile of burned gear. At first, I didn't recognize anything. It looked like the remnants of someone's pack, blackened nylon, melted zippers, a few scorched cooking tools, one boot half shriveled by the heat. Then I saw the sleeping bag, torn, the exact same brand and color as mine. The pattern was identical. That stopped me cold. I looked closer. There was something half buried in the ash next to the boot. I knelt and brushed some of it away. It was my passport, burned along the edges, photo page intact. Same name, same photo, same expiration date. I didn't remember bringing it. I never bring it on local trips. I keep it locked at home, in a drawer. But here it was, dirty, scorched, and very, very real. I backed away slowly, didn't touch anything else. Didn't call out. I turned off my flashlight and walked back to my own camp in the dark, quietly, slowly. When I got there, everything was as I'd left it. My tent was zipped. My sleeping bag was inside. My pack was sitting next to the log, but I didn't sleep. I sat with my back to a tree and watched my own fire burn down to embers. In the morning, I packed up and left. I didn't go back to the second site, didn't report it. I just walked. When I got home, I went straight to the drawer where I keep my passport. It was gone. This happened 3 years ago, and I still can't sleep right if I hear dripping water at night. There were 5 of us on that trip, me, Vadim, Max, Katya, and Lara. We just wanted to get out of the city for a weekend. Max had found this old forest base on some abandoned camping forum. Nothing official, no reviews, just coordinates and a photo of a half-collapsed shelter near a well. We set up our tents not far from the clearing. The place was quiet, untouched. No cell signal, no people. Just trees and that old stone well about 20 feet from where we made the fire. The first night was normal. We cooked, told stories, had a few drinks. At some point we noticed a weird sound, a dull, rhythmic knocking. Faint, but consistent. Vadim joked that it was forest spirits tapping on wood, but we traced it back to the well. It was coming from inside, like someone lightly knocking from below, 4 beats at a time, then silence. We checked it out, expecting maybe an animal had fallen in. The opening was sealed with a rusty metal grate. You couldn't see much, just blackness. We dropped a rock. It hit water maybe 6 seconds later, deep. The next morning, Lyra was gone. Her tent was zipped from the inside, but empty. Her boots were still by the flap. No note, no tracks, no sign of struggle. Just gone. We searched for hours. Katya was panicking. Max kept calling her name into the trees like it would somehow change anything. No one wanted to say it, but we all kept glancing at that well. By afternoon, we radioed for help on Vadim's emergency beacon. A forest patrol didn't get there until nightfall. One old guy, gruff, silent. He asked us questions, checked the clearing, then walked straight to the well, like he already knew where it was. Spent 10 minutes just staring down into it. When he came back, he told us the truth. Said the well was part of an old Soviet-era research site, shut down in the 80s. There'd been accidents. One man fell in, supposedly survived the impact, but drowned before anyone could get him out. They sealed it with steel and left it. Over the years, hikers started reporting weird sounds. Most were ignored. One group, though, back in '97, said they heard someone whispering their names from inside. That's when they buried the site entirely. But time and rain uncovered it again. When he was done talking, the forest was dead silent. Then the knocking started again. 4 beats. A pause. 4 beats. It was louder this time. The officer turned to us and said, in the flattest voice I've ever heard, "It only knocks when someone's still down there." They never found Lara. No signs, no clues. Just a missing person report and a sealed well that kept making noise.